When we look at a bee, we see something small, unremarkable, sometimes even irritating. A tiny body, buzzing wings, restless flight. A creature that seems so fragile is, in truth, one of nature's most vital pillars. Wherever you look, at a flower, at a fruit, at the grain growing in a field, behind it, somewhere in the background, there was always a bee. Its work is silent, invisible. Yet without it, that silence would become literal. In the very heart of the hive there is warmth and twilight. Only a soft buzzing can be heard, the hum of thousands of wings ceaselessly stirring the air. It is the sound of life, steady, soothing, like the breathing of one great organism. For the hive is not a home for thousands of insects. It is one single being, and the bees are its cells, breathing, thinking, and feeling together. And there, within that pulsing structure, something extraordinary begins. In one of the tiny chambers, laid with incredible precision, lies an egg, small, white, shining like a drop of dew. It is the work of the queen, the mother of the entire hive. In a single day, she may lay up to 2,000 such eggs. Each weighs less than a milligram, and yet within each rests immense potential. A new worker, a guard, a nurse, or perhaps even another queen. Queens do not decide the fate of their offspring. It is the workers, those quiet heroines of the hive, who choose what the new life will become. It all depends on how they feed the larva. Every bee is born identical, from the same genes, but only a few are given royal jelly, a dense, pearly substance rich in proteins and hormones. That is what determines whether a larva remains a humble worker or becomes a queen. Biology knows no other example quite like it. That within one community, from identical genes, beings so different can arise, all because of diet. It is as if a human could become either a ruler or a commoner, depending solely on what they were fed as a child. After 3 days, the egg cracks. Out comes a larva, white, blind, wingless. It looks nothing like the bee we know. But from its very first moment, it is surrounded by care. Nurse bees visit it dozens of times per hour, feeding it microscopic portions of royal jelly. The hive lives in a constant rhythm of feeding, cleaning, warming, and watching. Every larva is part of a plan that leaves no room for chaos. After several days, the larva begins to grow at a dizzying rate, increasing its size 1,000-fold in a single week. It is as if a 3-kilogram baby grew into 3 tons in 7 days. When it reaches the right size, the workers seal its cell with a thin wax cap. Inside, the metamorphosis begins. A miracle that even today, despite all we know of biology, still feels incomprehensible. In the warm darkness of its chamber, the larva turns into a pupa. Its body dissolves in an enzymatic bath. Everything it once was disappears, but out of that biological soup, something new begins to form. Wings, legs, antennae, eyes made of thousands of lenses. In just a few days, the perfect bee takes shape. When the time for birth arrives, the young bee chews through the wax cap and slowly emerges into the world. Its wings are soft, its shell pale, its legs unsteady. But before it can venture outside, there is much to learn. First, it becomes a cleaner, keeping the hive in order. Then a nurse, then a builder, a guard, and finally, a forager of nectar. Each role has its time and place. It is a precise life cycle that allows neither haste nor chance. Everything the young bee does follows the rhythm of the hive, guided by the queen's scent, the temperature, the sounds, the vibrations. Bees sense one another as if they shared a common nervous system. That is why they say the hive is one organism with 1,000 bodies. And here lies the greatest secret of bees. None of them could survive alone. Their strength is not in the individual, but in the collective. It is a life without ego. Every movement, every flight, every beat of a wing matters only because it serves the whole. Thus, a bee is born, not from the need of an individual to live, but from the necessity of the community to endure. It is one of nature's most beautiful reminders that true survival is only possible together. The hive has no leader, No law, no commands, and yet it works perfectly. If you looked inside, you would see what seems like chaos. Hundreds of bees moving in every direction, carrying pollen, feeding larvae, cleaning cells. But this is no chaos. It is flawless organization, without a ruler. Order emerging from thousands of small decisions that together form what scientists call the mind of the swarm. Bees do not act for themselves. They have no ambition, no desire for power. Each one knows what to do. Not because anyone told her, but because the whole hive sends subtle signals. Scent, sound, touch. This is their language. When food runs short, the chemical scent of hunger spreads instantly. When a new queen is born, the scent of the old one fades. When it is time to defend, the entire hive somehow knows. There is no I, there is only we. At the center of it all stands the queen. But despite her title, she does not rule. She gives no orders, decides no flight paths. Her purpose is to endure, to lay eggs, and to hold the hive together through pheromones. A scent every bee of her lineage can recognize. It is like a biological hymn, reminding each of them that they belong to the same living community. The rest of the population is made up of workers, females who will never become mothers, yet they are the very heart of the hive. Their lives are a constant rhythm of labor, feeding larvae, building wax combs, cleaning, ventilating, guarding the entrance, and finally, when they mature, leaving the hive to collect nectar and pollen. In their short lives, just 4 to 6 weeks, a single bee visits about 100,000 flowers. From her work comes only 1/12 of a teaspoon of honey, and still she keeps nothing for herself. Every drop goes into the shared pantry. Among the workers, there are also guards, standing at the hive's entrance, inspecting every bee by scent. If it smells different, it won't be allowed inside. In nature, there is no more precise identification system. No camera, no facial recognition algorithm works as perfectly as a bee's nose. There are also drones, males who, for most of the year, are somewhat unwanted guests. Their only purpose is to mate with the queen. They don't gather nectar, don't build, don't defend the hive, and yet they are necessary. For without them, there would be no future. But when autumn comes and honey stores run low, the workers stop feeding them. The drones are cast out of the hive and die in the cold. In the world of bees, there is no sentiment, only the cycle of life, which guards the survival of the whole. But the true magic of the hive does not lie in its division of roles. It lies in communication. Bees speak through dance. This is no metaphor. When one discovers a rich source of nectar, she returns to the hive and begins to dance upon the comb. It is called the waggle dance. The angle of her body to the sun, the length of her vibrations, these tell the others which direction to fly and how far to go. It is a kind of mathematics in motion, a vector map written in choreography. And what's most astonishing, every bee understands this dance instantly, without a teacher. It is knowledge inherited, encoded in their genes. The dance does more than point the way. It is also a form of democracy. When a swarm seeks a new home, the scouts return and each dances for her discovery. Others watch, join, or stop dancing. After a few hours, without a voice, without a leader, the entire swarm reaches agreement. Scientists have called it dance democracy, perhaps the most elegant decision-making system that exists in nature. There are no words in a hive, yet there is understanding. There are no thoughts, yet there is wisdom. It is a distributed intelligence, a system in which each individual is small and fragile, but together they form something capable of deciding, planning, adapting, and surviving. That is why bees fascinate biologists, philosophers, even engineers of artificial intelligence. Their way of working has inspired algorithms that learn cooperation, optimization, and self-organization. Nature invented this system millions of years before humans came up with the word network. The hive, then, is more than a home. It is a living organism where everyone knows their place, yet no one is a slave. Everything functions through shared rhythm, through trust written deep into their genetic code. It is a small, buzzing model of harmony, proof that order does not always require authority, and strength does not always need noise. Every hive has its own pulse. It is not the sound of wings, nor the hum of bees. It is scent. Subtle, barely perceptible, yet always there. It is the queen's pheromone, drifting through the hive like an invisible melody. Through it, every bee knows that all is well, that their world has meaning, and that someone watches over its continuity. But one day, the scent disappears. Sometimes it's age, sometimes an accident. The queen is eaten by a predator, caught in a spider's web, or simply does not return from her mating flight. Sometimes she dies by human hands when the hive is moved or treated with chemicals, and then begins what scientists call bee chaos. Though in truth it resembles mourning. The bees grow restless. Their buzzing grows louder, as if calling out to one another. You can feel the tension, something that wasn't there before. The workers start moving faster, bumping into each other, neglecting the larvae. The loss of the queen is like the loss of gravity. Everything in the hive loses direction. But that state doesn't last long. For the swarm, though leaderless, has an instinct for survival stronger than panic. The process of creating a new queen begins. The workers wander across the comb, searching for the youngest larvae, only a few hours old. Not everyone will do. They choose those from fertilized eggs, the ones that can become reproductive females. These larvae are moved into special cells, larger, open like chalices, and from that moment on, they are fed royal jelly. It is an extraordinary substance, thick, pearly, rich in proteins, sugars, vitamins, and hormones. It is royal jelly that determines destiny. A normal worker stops receiving it after 3 days. A queen, never. It is not genes that make a queen, but diet. The same DNA can create either a silent worker or the mother of a nation. A change in nourishment is all it takes. It is one of biology's most astonishing discoveries. That environment can reprogram life itself, setting it on an entirely new course. After several days, a young princess emerges from her cell. But if more than one has been born, the drama begins. Bees do not tolerate 2 queens. One must die. The newborn queen moves through the hive, listening for the faint piping sounds of her rivals still sealed within their cells. When she finds them, she pierces their cocoons with her sting, not out of hatred, but out of instinct. In the hive, there can be only one mother, for only one melody of scent can hold harmony together. Then comes the mating flight, the only moment in her life when she will leave the hive by her own will. She rises high into the air, 30 or 40 meters above the ground, and there, in a dance among the clouds, meets the drones. Several, sometimes a dozen, will mate with her, each dying instantly after the act, leaving behind the seed that will last her entire life. The queen returns to the hive with her spermatheca full, and she will never fly again. From that moment, she becomes the heart of the swarm. Her life is long, 4, sometimes even 5 years. By comparison, a worker lives only a few weeks. Every day, the queen lays between 1,500 and 2,000 eggs, never stopping, not even for a moment. She is one of the most productive beings on Earth. But when her scent begins to fade, the hive knows. The queen's pheromones are the signal of the colony's health. As they weaken, the bees understand it is time for renewal. They do not wait for her to die. They begin creating another. There is no rebellion, no coup. Only a natural ritual of succession. One queen departs, another is born, and the hive endures. And in this lies the wonder of bees. Where a human might see tragedy, they see only another stage of the life cycle. For them, the death of a queen is not an ending, but a beginning. Before humankind learned to write, before cities were built, before we understood how to sow grain, we already knew the taste of honey. In the caves of Spain, on walls 10,000 years old, there are paintings of people climbing cliffs with baskets in hand, surrounded by swarms of bees. It is the first image of beekeeping. There were no hives then, no smoke, no frames, only courage and the yearning for sweetness. For honey was the only sugar known to humans, energy sealed in golden liquid, a sacred gift of nature. From that moment on, Humankind and the bee have been intertwined, two threads of the same living fabric. The bee gives us honey, wax, propolis, and pollen. In return, we offer shelter, protection, and care. But this relationship was never only practical. For ancient civilizations, the bee was a symbol of divinity. In ancient Egypt, it was believed that bees were born from the tears of the sun god Ra. They symbolized order, diligence, and immortality. Pharaohs used beeswax in the embalming of bodies, convinced that it helped the soul find its way to eternity. In Greek mythology, the bee was the servant of Demeter, goddess of harvest and fertility. Aristotle wrote of it as a miracle of nature, one that humankind would never truly understand. Medieval monks called bees the little angels of God. They made honey from flowers without destroying them, and their wax gave light to the candles that illuminated churches. Even in heraldry, bees appeared as symbols. Napoleon Bonaparte wore them on his cloak as emblems of immortality and harmony. But in truth, human beings learned far more from bees than how to harvest honey. They learned order. In a hive, everything has rhythm. Every individual knows its role. Nothing is wasted, and no one stands above the whole. For people who for centuries struggled with chaos, war, and hunger, bees were a reminder that harmony is possible if everyone simply does what they are meant to do. Honey itself was more than nourishment. For millennia, it was medicine, cosmetic, and currency. In ancient Egypt, taxes could be paid in honey. In India, it was considered one of the 5 nectars of immortality. And in Hippocrates' medicine, it was nearly a panacea, treating wounds, coughs, fevers, even sleeplessness. Today, scientists confirm what bees have known all along. Honey is antibacterial, anti-inflammatory, and regenerative. But the bee's greatest gift doesn't come in a jar. It is pollination, the silent labor that makes our world possible. Each bee visits thousands of flowers a day, carrying grains of pollen from one to another. In doing so, she gives life to fruits, vegetables, grains, and entire ecosystems. It's estimated that 1 in every 3 bites of our food exists because of bees. Apples, strawberries, almonds, coffee, chocolate. All of it depends on a small insect choosing to land on a flower. And perhaps that's why, when bees began to vanish, people grew uneasy. They understood that our fates are inseparable. For if the bees stop returning to their hives, we too will lose our way home on this planet. Albert Einstein is said to have remarked that if bees disappeared, humanity would survive only 4 years. Maybe he exaggerated, but only slightly. Because bees are not just insects. They are engineers of life, feeding, pollinating, and teaching balance. And though humans now try to protect them with beehives, wild bee hotels, and flower meadows, true protection begins in awareness, in the realization that the bee does not work for us. We simply live in a world that she helps keep alive. When the hive falls silent, the silence is not peaceful. It is terrifying. Where just yesterday the air trembled with buzzing, now there is only the rustle of leaves and the echo of emptiness. And yet it is in that silence that our fields, orchards, and meadows awaken, more and more often without bees. This is not a catastrophe that comes overnight. It is a slow, almost invisible disappearance. One bee fails to return from her flight, then another, then 10. A hive that only days ago pulsed with life begins to thin out. The queen still lays eggs, but there are no workers left to feed the larvae. No one brings pollen. No one cleans the cells. In time, only a handful of weary daughters remain by their mother's side. Then, nothing. Scientists call it colony collapse disorder, the mass extinction of bee colonies. We call it more simply, the world is beginning to go quiet. And one of the main causes of that silence is us. What we see as progress becomes, for bees, a mortal trap. The first threat is pesticides, chemicals designed to protect crops, yet blind to the difference between pest and pollinator, especially neonicotinoids, which spread through every part of a plant, from root to nectar. For bees, they are poison in doses so small they're hard to measure. It takes only a sip of tainted nectar. The worker bee takes off, but on her way back, she loses her bearings. Her brain falters, her sense of direction collapses. Sometimes she circles until nightfall, falling exhausted into the grass. The hive waits, but she never returns. The second enemy is monoculture, fields stretching endlessly, filled with a single kind of plant. For humans, it means efficiency. For bees, a desert. When the bloom ends, there's nothing left to eat. No flowers, no pollen, no energy. A bee cannot live on honey alone. She needs diversity, as humans need vitamins. The cruel paradox is this: the more we simplify the landscape, the more we destroy those who sustain it. Then comes climate change. Springs arrive too early, flowers bloom too soon, and the bees can't keep up. By the time they awaken, the blossom is already gone. Nectar vanishes, and the cycle of pollination is broken. In the south, heat waves overheat colonies. In the north, snowless winters disturb their sleep. Bees cannot thrive in chaos, and the climate is becoming just that. But the most dangerous enemy has neither wings nor a chemical formula. It is a parasite, the Varroa destructor mite. This microscopic predator attaches to a bee's body, sucking her lifeblood and spreading deadly viruses. Within weeks, it can destroy an entire hive. Beekeepers have fought it for years, with natural acids, organic treatments, and special cleaning methods. Yet Varroa keeps evolving, keeps returning, keeps surviving. It is a war with no certain end. And finally, light, noise, and concrete. Cities grow, roads cut through meadows. The air thickens with smog. For bees, who navigate by the polarization of light and the Earth's magnetic field, it is like living inside a hall of mirrors. They lose their way, confuse directions, and sometimes simply vanish. Blue LED light, which for us means comfort, is a trap for them. It disrupts their circadian rhythm, disorients them, freezes them mid-flight. People often say they are saving the bees. But the truth is, it's the bees who have always been saving us. They pollinated the plants that fed us. They built the ecosystems that let us breathe. They held in balance the delicate web of life we are only beginning to comprehend. A web too intricate to replace with machines. In laboratories around the world, scientists are trying to build mechanical pollinators, drones that could carry pollen. But even the most advanced machine cannot match a bee, who in a single flight perceives the shape, color, scent, and even the electric charge of a flower, and learns which ones are worth returning to. Nature shaped her over millions of years. We've been trying to replicate her in mere decades. Perhaps then the only real salvation is humility. Because when the bees fall silent, it is not only the hive that goes quiet. It is everything. That is why every flower meadow, every balcony with a pot of lavender, every person who realizes that the world does not end with themselves, is one small step towards saving this humming miracle. The hive is a fortress. To us, it may look like a peaceful house of wax, but in truth, it is a perfectly organized state, living in a constant state of alert. For danger is never far away. To many creatures, bees are not only a source of honey, but of protein, the perfect prey. And though a bee seems fragile, nature has armed her with one of the most extraordinary defense strategies in the animal kingdom. The most fearsome enemy is the Asian hornet, a predator of terrifying strength and precision. Its jaws can decapitate a bee in seconds, and a single hornet can kill hundreds. For the hive, it is like the arrival of a hurricane. If they do not react immediately, they will be wiped out within hours. But nature, as always, has an answer. When a hornet scout enters the hive, the bees do not panic. There is no chaos, no confusion. They act as one. They let the intruder come deeper inside, where they can surround him. Then dozens of workers leap upon him, wrapping his body in a tight, trembling ball. And what follows is something that can only be called a biological execution. The bees begin to vibrate their flight muscles, not to take off, but to heat the air around the invader. The temperature inside the ball rises quickly, up to 46 degrees Celsius. For the bees, that is the edge of survival. For the hornet, it is death. The bees hold the heat for a few seconds more, then disperse, leaving behind the motionless body of their enemy. And once again, the hive falls silent. It is one of the most astonishing behaviors in all of nature. Bees have no claws, no fangs, no venom stronger than what's in their sting. But they have something greater, a common purpose. Their strength is not in individuality, but in harmony. Each one knows that alone she stands no chance. But together they can create deadly heat, a weapon no human ever invented. Hornets are not their only threat. The hive is constantly besieged by ants, spiders, wasps, even mice. The mice, especially in winter, try to sneak inside seeking warmth. But bees are not hospitable. They attack at once. If they cannot drag the intruder out, they mummify the body, coating it with a thin layer of propolis, a resinous antibacterial substance. It becomes a biological sarcophagus, preventing decay and protecting the hive from contamination. It is pure, cold logic, the logic of survival. Among the dangers that bees face are birds, buntings, woodpeckers, bee-eaters, capable of catching them mid-flight. Yet even against them, bees have adapted. They fly faster, shift direction with startling precision, and sometimes even change the time of day when they leave the hive for nectar, evading their winged hunters. Some species have developed even bolder strategies. African bees, famous for their aggressiveness, respond instantly. If an intruder approaches within a few meters, hundreds of workers launch into the air. It may seem excessive, yet this fierce determination is what allowed them to survive the harsh conditions of the savanna. What's most fascinating, though, is that in every one of these battles, bees do not fight for themselves. A worker knows her life is brief, that death is part of her duty. When she stings, she dies, and still she will not hesitate if the queen or the brood is in danger. To her, the hive is not a place. It is an idea, a continuity, a future. From a human point of view, it's hard not to see a metaphor in that. The world of bees teaches us that true strength does not lie in violence but in cooperation. That community can create something far greater than individual power. In a world that increasingly rewards selfishness, bees remind us of a forgotten truth. Endurance is only possible when we care for one another. Perhaps that's why their battle with the hornet is more than a curiosity of nature. It's a symbol. A reminder that even the smallest creatures, when united, can overcome what seems impossible. The hive is not merely a home. It is a living organism, a pulsating state of perfect coordination where hundreds of thousands of beings move in harmony. No one gives orders, there is no central command, and yet everything functions, as if an invisible orchestra led them by a single rhythm. But how? How do bees, without a voice or language, communicate with such precision that their societies surpass our own in organization? Their language is older than civilization, older than writing, perhaps even older than the very idea of information. It is a language of dance, scent, and vibration, a living code that has evolved with them. It all begins with a single bee, the scout. She is the first to leave the hive when spring awakens the world, flying high in search of color, scent, and pollen. Sometimes she travels a kilometer, sometimes 10, and when she finds the perfect source of nectar, she doesn't stop to feed. She returns because she knows she is not enough alone. She needs her sisters. Then the miracle begins. Inside the dark hive, where there is no light or sound, the scout begins to dance. Not for show, but to share information. This waggle dance remains one of the most extraordinary discoveries in biology. On the honeycomb, she moves in a figure-8 pattern. In the middle section, the waggle run, she vibrates her abdomen, producing faint sounds and tremors that the others feel through their antennae. Every movement carries meaning. The angle of her run shows the direction of flight relative to the sun. The duration reveals the distance, and the intensity tells how rich the source is. If she waggles straight upward, it means fly toward the sun. If slightly to the right, fly at this angle from the sun. And though all of this happens in total darkness, her audience understands with astonishing accuracy. Within a few degrees and meters, it is nature's GPS written in motion. Around the dancer, a circle of listeners forms. They touch her with their antennae, sense the vibrations, memorize the rhythm, then take off and find the flowers exactly where she described them. No words, no sounds, no sight, only perfect understanding. It is the mathematics of movement, the pure language of synchronization. But the dance is only one part of their communication. Bees also speak through chemicals, pheromones, invisible messages that fill the air and convey more than 1,000 words. The most important is the queen's pheromone, the scent that binds the colony together. When she is strong, her scent is rich, the hive calm and organized. When she weakens or dies, the scent fades and chaos rises. The workers grow restless, building new cells to raise a successor. To them, scent is order. When it disappears, so does stability. Workers too send their signals. They release an alarm pheromone when danger comes, a smell reminiscent of ripe banana, the call to attack. Others spread orientation pheromones by fanning their wings, marking safe paths home. Each hive even has its own unique scent, a chemical fingerprint. Any stranger carrying the wrong fragrance will be stopped at the entrance by guards who know, instantly, that she does not belong. Within the hive, bees also communicate through vibration. They use their wings, antennae, and legs to send subtle tremors. The queen emits rhythmic pulses, something between a hum and a song, her way of saying, "I am here." Workers produce gentle buzzes to calm or encourage others. Scientists have even discovered that bees use micro-vibrations to massage larvae, influencing their growth and determining whether a larva becomes a queen or a worker. Bees don't just speak, they educate through communication. All of this forms what scientists call collective intelligence. No single bee is a genius, but together they create a system capable of solving complex problems, making decisions, and adapting to change. It's as if the hive itself were a brain, and each bee a neuron, transmitting signals through scent, touch, and motion, a network more efficient than any human design. That's why bees can react faster than any man-made system. When the temperature drops in one part of the hive, others instantly vibrate their flight muscles to generate heat. When food sources dwindle, scouts change course, no orders, no hesitation. Seen through the lens of language, the hive hums with meaning. There are no words, yet there is communication. No symbols, yet there is understanding. What humans achieved through computers, bees achieved through evolution. For them, information isn't data, it's life itself. Bees need no alphabet to build a civilization that has survived for millennia. All it takes is dance, scent, and the heartbeat of the hive. And perhaps that's why, when we stand before a buzzing colony and listen to their living language, we feel we are witnessing something far beyond biology. Inside the hive, time flows differently. When our day ends with sunset, for bees it marks the beginning of one of nature's most intricate operations, the transformation of floral nectar into honey. Honey, that golden wonder of the natural world, is not merely sweet flower juice. It is the result of thousands of flights, millions of blossoms, and an unimaginable precision of chemistry and biology. Every drop holds the memory of sun and soil, and the labor of creatures that learned, millions of years ago, how to store summer in liquid gold. It all begins under the sun. As plants open their blossoms, nectar forms inside, a sugary reward offered to pollinators in exchange for carrying pollen. When a scout returns to the hive and reports a new source, an army takes flight. Each bee carries within her a small organ, the honey stomach, a reservoir that holds just 40 milligrams. To us, that's a droplet. To her, it's a universe. During her journey, she visits hundreds of flowers, drawing nectar through her proboscis and storing it in her honey stomach. There, the first transformation begins. Enzymes break complex sugars into simpler ones, glucose and fructose. It is as if cooking began not in a pot, but inside a living being. When her honey stomach is full, she returns to the hive. She does not consume it. It's not for her. It's a gift, brought home for the colony. Inside the hive, the forager bee seeks out a young worker known as a receiver. They meet antenna to antenna, as if exchanging a greeting. and then the forager passes the contents of her honey stomach directly into the receiver's mouth. It's not a random transfer. It's the first act of biological communication. Along with the nectar come enzymes, symbiotic bacteria, and microscopic molecules that will begin transforming the liquid into honey. For several minutes, the receiver bee chews and processes the nectar inside her body. She adds new enzymes, invertase, which continues breaking down complex sugars, and glucose oxidase, which creates gluconic acid and tiny amounts of hydrogen peroxide, a natural antibacterial agent. This is why honey never spoils. It contains compounds that stop bacteria and fungi from growing. Yet the processed nectar still holds too much water, about 70%. The bees must evaporate most of it, until only 17 to 20% remains. To do this, the worker stretches a drop of nectar between her mandibles, spreads it along the comb's wax walls, and begins to fan her wings. Soon the whole hive hums, not in rest but in ventilation. Thousands of bees act like living air conditioners, keeping the temperature near 35 degrees Celsius. In that warmth, water vanishes in moments. The process lasts for days. Bees add, refine, and dry until the liquid becomes thick, sticky, and golden. Only then is the honey ready. Each cell is sealed with a thin layer of wax, a bee's vault. Inside lies food that can last for months, even years. Every honey is different. Its taste, color, and scent depend on the flowers it came from. Acacia honey is pale and delicate. Linden honey sharp and herbal. Heather honey thick and perfumed with the forest. Buckwheat honey dark with a caramel edge. In a single spoonful, you can find traces of thousands of plant species. A liquid record of a landscape, a map of summer written in gold. In ancient Egypt, honey was a symbol of immortality. It has been found sealed in pharaohs' tombs, still edible after 3,000 years. Why? Because honey is biochemically invincible. Its low water content, high sugar concentration, and slightly acidic pH create an environment where no bacteria can survive. The bee's enzymes add a natural preservative, hydrogen peroxide, deadly to microbes, harmless to humans. That's why honey can endure for centuries, keeping both flavor and nourishment. It holds not only sugars but also amino acids, enzymes, minerals, antioxidants, and trace elements. A natural elixir of energy that no factory could ever reproduce. But honey is more than food. It's the story of cooperation between flower and insect. Each drop is proof that nothing in nature happens in isolation. The flower offers nectar, the bee gathers it, the plant reproduces, and humans, in turn, benefit from this exchange. There are no winners or losers, only a cycle that works because every part fulfills its role. Think of it. To make just 1 kilogram of honey, bees must visit around 4 million flowers and travel nearly 150,000 kilometers, almost 4 times around the earth. In that sense, every drop of honey is a condensed journey, the sum of flights, sunlight, and life itself. For humans, honey was one of the first known sweeteners. Paleolithic cave paintings in Spain, 8,000 years old, show people climbing cliffs with baskets, surrounded by swarming bees. For the ancients, honey was sacred. In Egypt, it was an offering to the gods. In Greece, it was thought to be the food of immortals. And in India, it was part of birth rituals. To our ancestors, honey wasn't just a flavor. It was a symbol of life, a tangible sign that the world is full of gifts, if only we learned to notice them. Today, we often treat it as a simple addition to tea. But it's worth remembering that every spoonful of honey is the product of an entire society of insects, working through the summer to create reserves for winter. And we, taking their honey, should give something back. We don't need to be beekeepers. It's enough to plant flowers, leave a patch of meadow, skip the pesticides on our lawns. For thousands of years, humans knew the taste of honey long before they discovered sugar. It was the first sweet gift of nature. A luxury, a medicine, a symbol of life. In ancient Egypt, it was used in burial rites. In India, it was part of elixirs of immortality. And in Greek myth, it was said to nourish the gods themselves. But honey is more than legend. It is living chemistry. a complex mix of hundreds of substances working together in harmony. As bees gather nectar from flowers, intricate biochemical processes unfold inside their bodies. In their honey stomachs, enzymes break complex sugars into simple ones, mostly glucose and fructose. A single spoon of honey contains over 180 biologically active compounds. Not just sugars, but amino acids, vitamins, B, C, K, minerals, potassium, calcium, iron, magnesium, zinc, along with flavonoids, enzymes, and natural antibiotics. These are what keep honey from spoiling. The same reason that pots of honey found in ancient tombs remain edible after millennia. Honey is anti-inflammatory, antibacterial, and antioxidant. One of its key enzymes, glucose oxidase, releases hydrogen peroxide when it comes into contact with water, acting as a natural disinfectant. That's why for centuries, honey was used to treat wounds and burns. It speeds healing, prevents infection, and soothes pain. Honey is also fuel. Its natural sugars are absorbed slowly, providing steady energy without the spikes caused by refined sugar. Athletes use it before exertion. Parents give it to children during times of high activity. But honey is not only energy, it's a shield. It strengthens the immune system, supports the heart, aids digestion, and calms coughs. Combined with lemon and warm, not hot water, it becomes a natural detoxifying drink. Some types of honey, like buckwheat honey, contain rutin, a compound that strengthens blood vessels and improves circulation. Linden honey soothes colds, while acacia honey eases nerves and insomnia. In folk medicine, honey was a universal cure, used for burns, sore throats, wounds, even eye ailments. Today we know it's not magic, but biochemistry. Modern research confirms that honey, especially raw, unpasteurized honey, has antiseptic and anti-inflammatory properties comparable to certain drugs. Some varieties, such as Manuka honey from New Zealand, contain a unique compound, methylglyoxal, capable of killing bacteria resistant to antibiotics. Honey is also cherished in cosmetics. Its natural moisturizing and antibacterial qualities make it perfect for healing skin, soothing irritation, and speeding recovery. Honey is healthy, but not in unlimited amounts. It is still sugar. Natural, yes, but rich in calories. Its healing power reveals itself only when eaten in moderation. An adult should not exceed 2 to 3 tablespoons a day, ideally on an empty stomach or mixed with warm water and lemon. It's also important never to add honey to boiling water. Temperatures above 40 degrees Celsius destroy its delicate enzymes and strip away its medicinal qualities. Interestingly, the oldest honey ever found was discovered in Georgia, more than 5,000 years old, and still edible. When nature falls silent, leaves drift down, and the wind carries the first frost, most insects disappear. Some die, some leave eggs behind and fade away, others slip into a kind of sleep. But not the bees. They do not hibernate. They do not freeze. Instead, they perform something far more extraordinary. They turn the hive into a living organism. In the middle of January, when the temperature outside drops to 20 degrees Celsius, the inside of the hive is alive with movement. The bees cluster together in a tight, pulsing ball called the winter cluster. At its heart, where the temperature can reach 35 degrees, rests the queen, safe and warm, surrounded by the bodies of her daughters. On the outer layer, the bees stand motionless, packed tightly like armor. But inside, every few minutes, they switch places. Those who are cold move inward, and the warmer ones take their turn on the outside. It's not chaos, but a rhythmic dance of survival. Bees can regulate their temperature using their own bodies. They shiver their wing muscles, much like humans shiver from cold. But for them, it's a conscious act. They don't flap to fly, but to create heat. In this way, the hive becomes more than shelter. It becomes a living, breathing thermal organism, pulsing, vigilant, alive. Through the cold months, bees never leave the hive. There are no flowers, no nectar, so their only energy comes from what they gathered before, from honey. That is why honey is not a luxury, but fuel, the very thing that keeps the colony alive. During winter, they eat sparingly. As the cluster slowly moves across the combs, Bees release digestive enzymes and metabolic heat. They consume the sweet gold to maintain warmth, and in return produce energy that sustains the entire community. If the honey runs out, they die. That's why every beekeeper knows that taking too much honey from the hive is a death sentence for the colony. Every spoon removed must be replaced with food. Otherwise, the hive becomes a silent grave. As the frost deepens, the bees slow down. They don't fly, don't feed larvae, don't build combs. Their life quiets, but never stops. What's remarkable is that winter bees are different from summer ones. Those born in autumn can live up to 6 months, long-lived guardians of the hive. Their bodies are hardier, and their hemolymph, the insect's version of blood, is richer in fats and proteins. It allows them to withstand cold, hunger, and weeks of darkness. Sometimes, on warmer winter days when the air rises above 10 degrees, the bees fly out briefly, not for food, but to perform the cleansing flight. They're only outing for months. Bees never soil their hive. It's another mark of their astonishing order and hygiene. From the outside, the hive seems dead, covered in snow, silent and still. But if you press your ear to the wood, you'll hear a faint, steady hum. The hive's breath, a sign that life continues within. The sound of thousands of wings vibrating in the rhythm of a single shared heart. Even in darkness and cold, the bees maintain structure. They know where the queen is, where the honey lies. They can't see, hear, or smell flowers, yet they function as one flawless organism. This ability to endure the impossible is a masterpiece of evolution. No other insect has built a system that lets an entire community survive without sleep, sealed away through months of winter. As the days begin to lengthen, bees sense the change in light and warmth. The queen, almost dormant through winter, starts to lay her first eggs. It is the moment the hive awakens. Young bees are born in the warm heart of the cluster, and older workers feed them royal jelly. The energy saved through the long cold months is now released. With the first crocuses and willows, a new cycle begins. The cluster breaks apart, the hive fills with the hum of wings, and the first scouts take flight. Then you realize that the hive was never asleep. It was only waiting, quietly, patiently, in rhythm with nature. The winter hive is a lesson in community and patience. When the world freezes, bees don't fight the cold. They cooperate with it. They know survival doesn't come from the strength of one, but from the warmth of many. While humans struggle with loneliness and isolation, bees have known for millennia the secret of unity. Their hive is a metaphor, a living organism where every member knows its place. Every sound has meaning, and every drop of honey is a shared effort. Sometimes, on a hot summer afternoon, the sky begins to tremble. At first softly, as if the air itself were vibrating, then louder, until the sound becomes almost physical, a buzzing wave rolling over the fields, the gardens, the world. People step outside, look up, sometimes in fear, sometimes in wonder. Above them drifts a swarm of bees, a dark, swirling cloud of life spinning in sunlight like the breath of the earth. It is then that the hive makes a decision humans can hardly comprehend. To leave, in order to survive? The colony has grown too large. Space is running out. A young queen is ready, and the old one, who has ruled for years, prepares to go. Before the hive becomes too crowded, she gathers part of her daughters and takes flight. This is called swarming, nature's way of giving birth to new colonies. When the queen leaves, she is never alone. Tens of thousands of bees follow, guided not by sight or sound, but by scent, her pheromones, a chemical compass that holds them together. As long as they can smell her in the air, they know where to go. Sometimes, if you look closely, you'll see the swarm pause, settling on a branch, a fence, a wall. The queen rests at the center, surrounded by a dense, trembling mass of bodies. It's a moment of rest, a pause between worlds. The swarm is most vulnerable now. No hive, no honey, no brood to protect, and yet no aggression. Thousands of bees, armed but peaceful, gathered around their queen in perfect stillness, as if aware that every heartbeat must be used not for battle, but for renewal. And then the beekeeper appears. He knows that if he lets the swarm go, he will lose half his colony. So he moves with care and purpose. First, he must find the queen. It isn't easy. She's larger, with a longer abdomen, but in the chaos of a living cloud, she can vanish in seconds. Experienced beekeepers can sense her by the behavior of the swarm, by its pulse. For where the queen is, there is order. When he finds her, he gently captures her, not to harm, but to guide. Sometimes he places her in a small container, sometimes directly into a new hive, and then something miraculous happens. The entire swarm calms, as if a command never spoken had just been received. The bees turn toward her, settle one by one, forming a living wave that flows back to their queen. They don't need to see her. They just need to feel her. In the world of bees, there is no attachment in the human sense, no emotion, no tears, and yet it's hard not to see something profoundly moving in it. The swarm doesn't know where it's going, has no map, no plan. It follows only the scent of its mother, her presence. It's pure biology, and yet it resembles faith, an instinct so deep it becomes the very meaning of life. Beekeepers often say that this moment, when the swarm rises and follows its queen, is one of the most beautiful scenes in nature, like watching the soul of a hive leaving its body to be born anew elsewhere. The sky darkens, the air trembles, and the sound of bees becomes a prayer, loud, living, full of purpose. When the swarm finally finds a new home, in a hollow tree, under a roof, or in a wooden box prepared by human hands, the queen enters first. Then, thousands of her daughters follow. At the entrance, some lift their abdomens and fan their wings, spreading her scent through the air. It's a message to the rest. This is home now. Within hours, a new colony is born, ready to begin again. In the human world, such devotion seems impossible. But in the world of bees, it's the only way to survive. For a swarm without its queen is like a heart without rhythm. It loses direction, meaning, life. And the next time you hear that loud, rising hum above your head, a dark, trembling cloud moving like a river of air, know that you're witnessing something extraordinary. Not chaos, not danger, but an act of rebirth,